Well, it's a rivalry that feels old as time, though it's hard to call it a rivalry when the Bills have dominated the Dolphins over the last few seasons. Last time out, it was Josh Allen steering his team with 13 of 9 and 139 passing yards to win on Thursday Night Football. The ground game was going as well. But the one thing we remember from that game, of course, the headliner was Tua Tagovailoa, knocked out with another concussion. He has been on IR since that moment, but now he's back, hoping to get things back on track for the Dolphins. And unfortunately for the Finns, Josh Allen is just that dude, especially when he plays against the Dolphins. 270 plus passing yards and 40 plus rushing yards. He's the only player to ever do that against a single team. 12-2 overall against the Dolphins. He is looking to move to 13-2 come this weekend. 42 total touchdowns, just 9 INTs. The Dolphins have quite some work to do, and to get ready for the game plan, we bring in our Trent Green, who will be on the call for this one, giving us a look ahead for that game on Sunday. Trent, we got to start, of course, by talking about Josh Allen, the cyborg. What is it about playing against Miami? Is it that Josh is just able to have his best and impressive performances?
Well, I think you said it right there. When, the fact that he's 12-2, the numbers that he's been able to put up, obviously the division games are so much more important because you're playing them twice. You're talking about, for them, it would be playing the Jets and the Patriots as well. So those are the games you kind of get dialed in on. And Josh has been very dialed in on the Dolphins, no matter what the coaching staff is, considering he's 12-2 against Mike McDaniel's team. Although they've had 3 different defensive coordinators in the 3 years, they've won the last 5 in a row. So it's including the playoff game. So it's been a team that he's had a lot of dominance over. And I think it's a little bit different team. You look at some of those stats and some of the early games that Josh had against the Dolphins, they were a much more pass-happy team, and he was throwing with a lot more yards. You mentioned in the Week 2 win over the Dolphins, he didn't even have 200 yards passing, but he was very efficient in what he did. They protected the football. There's a lot more running the football this year. There's a lot more focus on ball control, not turning it over. Ever since Joe Brady took over as offensive coordinator in Week 11 last year, they've done a better job of running, better job protecting the football, better job with penalties. And on the other side of it, they're not getting as many passing yards. So I think when you look at the numbers and what they've been able to do, it's a much better team in terms of overall team concept, not just the fantasy type numbers that I know a lot of fantasy owners are expecting out of Josh Allen.
Well, it's crazy when you think about how the wide receivers that he's been throwing to haven't been as efficient maybe as we were expecting that unit to be with that offense. So it's crazy when you think about the Bills again leading the division at this point of the season, right? They are 4 games clear of anyone else in that division. The Dolphins are in second there, but we've seen how their season has gone to this point. For this game particularly, Trent, when you're thinking about that division race as we look at the records here, how important is it for the Dolphins not only to get a win over Buffalo, something they don't do very often, but to get that win with the AFC standings how they are right now?
I'm going to actually use a quote that I heard earlier this week from a quarterback that's in a different division on a different team, and that's Joe Burrow, talking about the Bengals and what they need to do. And really, when you look at this and break it down, 2-5, there's only 10 games left, right? And normally, on average, you make the playoffs at 10. It's not always guaranteed. Sometimes, there's just teams that have even had 11 wins that don't make the playoffs. So every game has to have a heightened level of urgency. And I think with the Dolphins, they'll be underdogs. They're trying to get things going. The Bills have had dominance over them in recent games, recent memory. So I think there definitely has to be a heightened level of urgency on the Dolphins' part. And really, almost every win or every game has to be a must-win mindset. And I think that's really the way that they have to approach it. I think the offense looked a lot better with Tua last week coming in. And even though they lost the game to Arizona, they led that game for all 60 minutes. I guess you'd go 59 minutes and 59 seconds. But they led the entire game until the final kick at the buzzer. So it was a game that they could have won and should have won, but they were very efficient. They need to be better in the red zone, and I thought Tua looked pretty sharp considering how much time he's missed.
If we continue the conversation about the Dolphins, and you mentioned the playoff push there as well, they still have a chance of getting in the postseason, which is kind of why we were talking about just where they are at in the division. Right. 3.6 is what our experts are giving them. Is that realistic in your opinion, based on what you've seen, even with Tua in the matchup, that they could get into the postseason at this point?
I think when you're talking about, they added a couple years ago, they added the extra wild card team. We all know that the talent they have on this team, there's expectation that some of that talent, the offensive talent has returned. So it's a matter of staying healthy on that side of the ball. They need to get some guys healthy on the defensive side of the ball and get some help there. But the defense has been playing pretty well. When you look at, from a numbers standpoint, what they've been able to do, they've really been up against it from the turnovers that the offense has had and putting the defense in bad field position or putting them in a bad situation. And then they've got to be better defensively in the red zone. I touched on a second ago about the offense needing to get more touchdowns than field goals. Defensively, on the other side of things, need to stop the touchdowns and either get turnovers or force teams into field goals. So I do think this team, because of the talent they have, because of the experience they have, because of the experience Mike McDaniel has in these types of situations. He was talking to us this week about the fact that he was on the San Francisco team in 2021 that started off 3-5 and ended up making it into the playoffs and made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. So he has some experience on his side dealing with slow starts and being able to come back and exceed expectations. So because of that blueprint, because of that fact, and because of the talent they have, I do think it's possible.
That number 24, they have been echoing all season long, the 24-year playoff drought that they have been dealing with. That's the last time they won a game in the postseason. We'll see if they can get it done starting on Sunday with you on the call. Trent, thanks so much for hanging out with us here on HQ.
Appreciate it.
Here is your Sunday slate. Of course, that game, Dolphins-Bills, coming your way at 1 o'clock, along with several other big games on the docket. Then we got a double dipper in the 4 o'clock window. Jags, Eagles, Bears, Cardinals. It's all coming your way on Sunday, CBS, and streaming on Paramount+.